God, please stop crying. I don't know what to do anymore. Jonathan Reed's whisper cracked in the dark nursery. He sat on the floor, his back pressed against the crib, cradling his newborn daughter Amelia against his chest. His shirt was rumpled, stained with spilled formula. The bottle warmer blinked uselessly on the dresser. Outside, San Francisco's rain streaked the tall windows in silver and blue, turning the room into a cage of water and glass. Amelia was only 3 weeks old. For 3 nights, she had refused every bottle, her cries growing hoarse and ragged. Now, her tiny fists beat weakly against his shirt, her mouth opening in soundless sobs. Jonathan tried to rock her, tried to hush her, but the hands once steady in boardrooms now trembled without control. "Please, baby girl," he murmured, voice rough. "Daddy's trying." But he wasn't sure he was. He wasn't sure of anything. Claire would have known. Claire had always known. But Claire was gone, taken by childbirth, leaving Jonathan alone in a mansion full of everything except what his daughter needed most. He pressed his cheek to Amelia's damp hair, closing his eyes against exhaustion. Tears fell, soaking into her tiny blanket. Then came a knock, soft at first, barely audible over the baby's cries, then again firmer, patient. Jonathan flinched. At this hour, who would dare? Still holding Amelia, he rose unsteadily and walked down the long hallway. The grand house felt hollow and cold, his footsteps echoing off marble floors. Through the beveled glass of the front door, he saw Maya Williams. She stood under the porch light, soaked to the bone, curls plastered to her forehead. 29 years old, the quiet black maid who lived in the guest house. Normally, she kept her eyes down and her voice soft. Tonight, she stood straight, a cloth bundle pressed to her chest. Her own infant son. Jonathan didn't open the door. "Maya, it's past midnight. What are you doing here?" "I heard the baby." "Sir," she said softly, her Georgia accent slipping through. "She's been crying for hours." "That's none of your concern," he snapped. "I know it isn't," she replied, shifting her bundle. "But I know that cry. My boy's 6 months old. I'm still nursing." She took a breath. "I have milk. Please, let me help." Jonathan stared at her, stunned. "You think I'm going to hand my daughter to a maid? Are you out of your mind?" "I'm not asking for trust," Maya said. "I'm asking you to let her stop hurting." Thunder rolled above the house. Upstairs, Amelia's cries cracked into thin, broken gasps. Maya's voice stayed steady. "She's starving. That's not fussing. That's hunger." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "My wife just died," he muttered, more to himself than to her. "I know," Maya said softly. "She was kind to me. She once told me if anything happened, I should stay. That maybe one day, you'd see what she saw." Her words cut through his fog. He remembered Claire laughing in the kitchen, saying, "Maya's a keeper." He had brushed it off then. Now his baby felt limp against his shoulder, her cries fading into weak whimpers. "What if something goes wrong?" he whispered. "She'll stop crying," Maya answered simply. "That's what will happen." His hand trembled on the lock. There was no thunderclap of revelation, just the soft click as he opened the door and stepped aside. Maya entered, dripping water onto the marble. She didn't wait for permission to head upstairs. Her instincts led her to the nursery. Jonathan followed, clutching Amelia, feeling like a man walking off a cliff. In the dim nursery light, Maya slipped off her soaked cardigan and held out her arms. "May I?" Jonathan hesitated, then, because he had no choice, handed over his daughter. The change was immediate. Amelia stopped crying the instant Maya's arms enclosed her. The baby's fists unclenched. A soft sigh replaced the broken wail, as if her body recognized safety before her mind could. Jonathan froze, watching. Maya turned slightly away, sitting on the rocking chair, shielding the baby from view as she unlatched the front of her blouse. With practiced grace, she guided Amelia to her breast. The child latched immediately, tiny hands curling against Maya's skin. Warmth spread through the room like a secret. The rain outside softened to a hush. Maya rocked gently, humming an old tune. Her eyes lowered, her expression calm. Amelia's cheeks moved in slow rhythm as she drank. A faint whimper escaped her, then silence. Within minutes, her eyelids fluttered closed. She slept, a deep, untroubled sleep for the first time in days. If this moment touched your heart, take a second to tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. It really encourages us to bring you more heartfelt stories. Jonathan stood like a statue, his chest aching. Watching his daughter nestled against the black maid's chest, watching the steady rise and fall of their breathing. He felt a sharp twist of shame. All his wealth, all his power, all his solutions. And it was the woman he'd barely noticed who did what he could not. Then something broke inside him. Before he could think, Jonathan crossed the room and knelt beside the rocking chair. He wrapped his arms around both Maya and the baby in an awkward embrace. "Thank you. Thank you. Oh my God, thank you," he whispered, voice trembling with relief and gratitude. "You saved her. You saved her." Maya stiffened, startled. She had never been touched by him before, never even truly seen. Jonathan blinked, realizing what he'd done. He released her quickly, face flushed. "I'm sorry. That was out of line." "It's all right, sir," she said softly, adjusting Amelia in her arms. He shook his head, rubbing his face. "No, it's not. I've been blind, rude and worse. Yet you still came." Maya didn't answer. She rocked the baby, whose tiny fingers curled in sleep. Jonathan could only stand there, listening to the soft, rhythmic breathing that filled the room like a prayer. For the first time in weeks, the house was silent. Jonathan Reed, billionaire, widower, father, felt guilt and gratitude mix in his chest like one unsteady heartbeat. And beneath it, the faintest flicker of hope. The silence lingered long after Amelia drifted to sleep, cradled in Maya's arms. The nursery, once filled with desperate cries, now felt sacred and still. The only sound was the gentle creak of the rocking chair. Jonathan stood awkwardly nearby, hands in his pockets, eyes on his daughter. She looked peaceful, her tiny face turned toward Maya's chest, pink and calm. He couldn't remember the last time she had looked like that. Not since Claire had died. "She's quiet," he said finally. Maya nodded. "She's full, warm. She just needed what only a mother could give." The words landed like a soft blow. Jonathan's eyes dropped. "And I couldn't give her that." "No," Maya said gently. "But you stayed. You held her when she cried." "That matters." Jonathan swallowed hard. He didn't know how to respond to kindness spoken so simply. "I didn't expect you to show up tonight," he said. "Didn't think you'd hear." "I was up with my son," Maya replied. "We share a wall. I heard every minute of it." Jonathan gave a dry laugh. "I'm sorry for being human." Maya smiled faintly. "Don't be." He sat slowly in the armchair, elbows on his knees, watching as Maya tucked the blanket around Amelia. "She took to you so fast," he said. "Babies know when a body feels familiar." Maya answered softly. "I've had long nights like this before." Jonathan studied her. Her calm carried weight, grief and strength intertwined. "You said you have a son," Maya nodded. "Elias. 6 months old. He's asleep in the guest house." Jonathan ran a hand over his face. "So you came here in the middle of the night with your own baby, just to help mine." "I couldn't ignore her crying," Maya said. "Or yours." He blinked, caught off guard. "I wasn't crying." Maya didn't argue. Her silence said enough. "Claire trusted you," Jonathan murmured. "She always said you had a gift." "I didn't listen." Maya lifted Amelia gently, who still slept soundly. "I should go. Elias will need me soon." Jonathan stood quickly. "Wait, will you come back tomorrow? To feed her again? I'll pay you whatever you want." "I wasn't offering help for money, Mr. Reed," Maya said. "I know," he replied quickly. "But I'm asking now. I don't want to do this alone. Not anymore." She studied him, unreadable, then nodded once. "I'll come before sunrise." The weight in his chest eased slightly. "Thank you." As Maya turned toward the door, Amelia still resting on her shoulder, Jonathan hesitated. "Shouldn't I take her back?" "She's out cold," Maya said softly. "Let me carry her. Just this once." Jonathan nodded, his voice caught in his throat. They moved together down the quiet hallway, through the grand staircase, toward the guest house beyond the garden. The rain had softened to mist, the cold air brushing their faces. "You should rest," Maya said before leaving. "There'll be another night like this. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. But now, you know someone will come when she cries." Jonathan said nothing. He stood in the doorway, watching her disappear into the mist, Amelia's tiny head resting over her shoulder. Back inside, he moved like a ghost through the house. He passed the untouched dinner, the photos of Claire on the wall. He paused at one, Claire smiling, holding her pregnant belly. He touched the frame gently. "I hope you saw that," he whispered. "She saved our girl tonight." That night, for the first time since the funeral, Jonathan Reed fell asleep. He didn't dream, he didn't cry. He just slept. And somewhere in the quiet guest house, Maya sat awake, feeding her own son, whispering softly through the stillness. The warmth of another child still clinging to her shirt. She had been invisible in that house for months. Tonight, Someone had finally seen her. When Jonathan awoke the next morning, it wasn't to the sound of crying. No desperate wailing. No soft sobs echoing through the nursery. Just silence, and the unfamiliar peace of sleep without guilt. Sunlight sliced through the curtains. He blinked, heart racing. He rushed to the nursery, and there she was. Amelia lay in her crib, wrapped in the yellow blanket Claire had chosen. Her chest rose and fell in deep, steady rhythm. A faint milky line traced her lips. Her tiny hand twitched in dream. Jonathan exhaled, leaning against the doorframe. She was okay, more than okay. She looked content. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just stood there, wrapped in quiet warmth. Downstairs, the faint scent of coffee drifted through the house. Coffee. He followed the smell, wondering if he was still dreaming. And for the first time in months, Jonathan Reed didn't feel completely alone. As Jonathan entered the kitchen, he stopped abruptly. Maya stood by the counter, her presence calm and gentle. She wore a clean blouse, her curls tied back neatly, though a few soft strands framed her face. She was pouring coffee into 2 mugs. One plain white, and the other the dark green ceramic mug Claire had given him for his birthday. Maya turned when she heard him. "Morning," she said softly. Jonathan blinked. "You're here." "You asked me to come before sunrise," she replied. "So I did." He rubbed the back of his neck. "A little awkward." "Right. I didn't think you actually would." "I said I would," she answered, handing him the green mug without hesitation. The coffee smelled fresh and strong, just how he liked it. No sugar, no cream. Claire used to joke it tasted like burnt wood. He took a sip. "This is perfect." "I found your old grinder in the pantry," Maya said, gesturing toward the counter. "It still works." Jonathan glanced around the softly lit kitchen. In a sling against Maya's chest, baby Elias cooed quietly, his big eyes curious before resting again against his mother. "You walked here again this morning?" Jonathan asked, a trace of guilt in his tone. "I don't have a car," she replied simply. "The walk isn't far." Jonathan frowned. "We'll fix that." Maya looked up, surprised. "Excuse me. You shouldn't be walking in the dark with an infant," he said firmly. "We'll get you a car, or a driver. Whatever you need." "I'm not asking for handouts, Mr. Reed. And I'm not offering one," he replied. "You saved my daughter's life last night. The least I can do is make sure you're safe." Maya didn't respond right away. She turned back to the stove, stirring a small pot that filled the kitchen with the scent of oats, cinnamon and apples. "You made breakfast?" he asked quietly. "For you," she said simply. "I figured you hadn't eaten much lately." Jonathan stared at her. No one had cooked for him since Claire died. No one had poured him coffee or asked if he'd slept. Until now. If you find this story interesting, please make sure to subscribe. It really encourages us to bring more stories for you. "She'll need feeding again in about an hour," Maya said gently. "But for now, she's sleeping fine. She didn't cry after you left," Jonathan said. "No," Maya replied. She was calm. Babies feel when someone's calm with them. They mirror it. He studied her. "You seem calm all the time." Maya gave a soft chuckle. "I'm not. But I've learned to hold calm for someone else, even when I'm falling apart." That struck him deeper than expected. "I think I've been falling apart since Claire died," he murmured. "Last night, I just held her and prayed she'd stop crying." "You did your best," Maya said softly. "That's what matters." Jonathan nodded slowly. "I used to think doing your best was a weak excuse, that only results mattered. But last night, I would have given anything just to see her breathe easy again." "She's breathing easy now," Maya replied. "That means something." A long, quiet moment passed. She served him a bowl of oatmeal and sat across from him. Elias slept soundly against her chest. "May I ask something?" Jonathan said. "Of course. Why are you still here?" "Most of the staff left after Claire passed." Maya stirred her coffee slowly. "Because Claire asked me to. Months before she gave birth, she told me that if anything happened to her, I should stay and help you." Jonathan felt his throat tighten. "She really said that?" "She did. She said you'd shut everyone out, but she hoped I'd be patient. That maybe, when you were ready, you'd let someone help." He looked at her, really looked. She wasn't just the maid. She was someone Claire had trusted deeply, someone who kept a promise long after everyone else had left. "Thank you," he whispered. "You're welcome," she said, smiling faintly. And for the first time in weeks, Jonathan Reed didn't feel alone at his breakfast table. If this moment touched your heart, hit subscribe. It truly helps us bring you more heartfelt stories like this. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know. She smiled. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, Jonathan knocked gently on Maya's open door. She was reading on the bed, little Elias asleep in her lap. "Hey," he said softly. "I just wanted to say thank you again, for moving in, for everything." Maya looked up. "You don't need to keep thanking me. I'm not here out of pity." "I know," Jonathan replied, "but I still need to say it." He lingered for a moment, then added, "Dinner's on the stove. I stocked the kitchen, thought you might want something warm." Maya raised an eyebrow. "You cooked?" He chuckled. "Not exactly. But I know how to order from the Italian place Claire liked." She smiled faintly. "That'll do just fine. Come down when you're ready," he said. "No pressure." As he walked away, Maya looked down at Elias and whispered, "See that? He's trying." Something inside her softened, not because he was a billionaire, or because he finally noticed her, but because he had stopped pretending that grief was something a man could conquer alone. That night, for the first time, the mansion felt less like a tomb and more like a home, a place where people lived, where babies were fed, where laughter might return, and where strangers were slowly becoming something like family. The scent of garlic butter and rosemary drifted up the staircase, pulling Maya from her thoughts. She had just settled Elias into his bassinet when the aroma reached her. For a moment, she could almost pretend this was a normal evening in a normal house, not a billionaire's estate still echoing with grief. She adjusted her blouse, brushed a hand through her curls, and stepped into the hallway. The amber light spilling through the tall windows painted the floor like gold. Every step toward the dining room felt like walking into another world, one where she wasn't just the maid, but something more. When she entered, she paused. The long mahogany table, once an empty monument to wealth, now held 2 steaming plates of pasta, a basket of garlic bread, and 2 glasses of sparkling water. A single candle flickered between them. Not grand, not romantic, just warm. Jonathan stood at the sideboard lighting a second candle. He looked up when he heard her. "You made it," he said with a quiet smile. "I almost didn't," Maya teased. "I forgot what a proper meal smells like." He laughed, a sound that didn't feel forced. "You're not the only one." As she took the seat he pulled out for her, unsure when anyone last did that for her. Probably before Elias was born. "I hope this is okay," Jonathan said. "It's what Claire used to order from that little trattoria in North Beach." "It's more than okay," Maya replied, twirling her pasta. They ate in comfortable silence, broken only by the clink of forks and the occasional soft laugh when Maya told a story about Elias trying to crawl backward instead of forward. Before we continue, if you find this story interesting, please make sure to subscribe. It really encourages us to bring more stories for you. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from our amazing viewers. After a while, Jonathan asked, "When you're not saving drowning fathers and nursing their babies, what did you dream of doing?" Maya froze mid-bite, surprised. "I was supposed to be a nurse," she said. "Went to community college, got certified. I wanted to finish my degree while raising Elias, but then things changed. Your husband passed." Jonathan asked gently. She nodded. "And suddenly everything became about survival, rent, diapers, grief. I needed work fast. A friend told me your wife was looking for help. I didn't think it would turn into anything long-term, but then I met Claire." Jonathan leaned forward. "She liked you. She respected me," Maya corrected softly. "That meant more." He nodded quietly. "She saw people even when I didn't." Maya gave a small smile. "You're starting to." Their eyes met. Recognition, not romance. 2 souls carrying loss, now sitting across from each other not as employer and maid, but as something fragile and human. Then, a loud knock echoed from the front door. Jonathan's brow furrowed. "That's odd. I'm not expecting anyone." He stood quickly, crossing the hallway. Maya followed, instincts sharp. The knock came again, harder this time. When Jonathan opened the door, a tall man in his 50s stood there, wearing a tailored coat and a stern expression. "Mr. Reed?" he asked, flashing a badge. "Detective Ross. We have new questions about your wife's death." Jonathan stiffened. "Her death was ruled a complication during childbirth." "What questions?" Ross's eyes flicked to Maya, standing behind Jonathan. "Mind if I come in?" Jonathan hesitated. "It's late. This won't take long." Reluctantly, he stepped aside. Maya lingered by the staircase, Watching as Ross entered the living room, the air instantly heavier. "What is this about?" Jonathan asked. "We received an anonymous tip," Ross said, pulling a small notebook from his coat. "Something about the attending physician that night, Dr. Henders. There may have been negligence. Or worse." Jonathan's voice hardened. "That's impossible." Claire trusted him. "Trust isn't proof," Ross replied. "We're reopening the case. Just routine questions for now. But you might want to prepare yourself for the possibility that her death wasn't as accidental as you believed." From the staircase, Maya watched Jonathan's shoulders tense, the storm behind his eyes returning, the reopening of a wound barely healed. Ross handed him a card. "We'll be in touch." When the door shut, silence filled the house again. Maya stepped closer. "Jonathan." He turned, card still in hand. "Someone thinks Claire's death wasn't just a tragedy," as she studied him. "Do you believe them?" "I don't know," he said quietly. "But if they're right, and someone let her die," he stopped. "Then you'll find the truth," Maya said softly. "No matter what it costs." Jonathan nodded, and for the first time, Maya saw something new in him, not just grief, but purpose. "I was moved the moment I walked into that nursery and saw your daughter starving." Jonathan lowered his gaze. "You should leave. Take Elias and go somewhere safe." "No," Maya said firmly. "I won't run, not again. You have a child now, and that child will grow up knowing his mother stood up for what was right." He looked at her then, really looked. Maya wasn't afraid. Exhausted, yes. Worn down, but behind her eyes was steel. Jonathan nodded slowly. "Then we faced this together." The next morning, Jonathan held a press conference in the glass atrium of Reed Industries. The media gathered like vultures. Cameras flashing, microphones crowding the podium. Maya watched quietly from the wings. "My wife, Claire Reed, died during childbirth 7 months ago," he began. "Until recently, I believed it was an unavoidable tragedy. But now, I have reason to believe her death was preventable, that her medical rights were violated, and her voice ignored." Gasps filled the room. Flashes erupted. "I'm calling for a full investigation into Dr. Martin Henders and the practices at Crescent Memorial Hospital. I will not rest until justice is served. For Claire, and for every woman who was told her pain was imaginary." Reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Reed, are you alleging malpractice? Do you have proof? Why come forward now?" Jonathan's voice didn't waver. "Because silence is complicity, and I've been silent too long." That moment felt like a fuse being lit. Within hours, the story exploded across the nation. News networks picked it up, social media trended with "Fev Justice for Claire" and "She Speaks." Thousands of women flooded the internet with their own stories of being dismissed, misdiagnosed, or mistreated during childbirth. Jonathan's name, once tied only to business headlines, now appeared beside photos of his late wife and newborn daughter. Some hailed him as a hero, others accused him of exploiting grief, and then the hospital struck back. Crescent Memorial's official statement came at noon. "We extend our condolences to Mr. Reed for his loss. However, we stand by the professional conduct of our staff during Mrs. Reed's care. No evidence of misconduct has been found." Jonathan read it aloud in his office, jaw tight enough to crack a tooth. "They're already spinning," he muttered, tossing the paper aside, burying guilt in polite press releases. Maya stood in the doorway. "That means it's working. You hit a nerve." He turned sharply. "Claire's death isn't a strategy. I did this because she deserved better. And that's exactly why it's working," Maya said softly, setting a mug of tea beside him. "Because it's real. But now it's going to get ugly." Jonathan exhaled deeply. "What happens when they start digging into me?" "They will," she said. "And when they do, stay focused. This isn't about your past, it's about her." He nodded slowly. "You're right," she smiled faintly. "I usually am." By midweek, the storm had grown louder. Paparazzi camped outside the estate gates. Maya had to sneak Elias and Amelia through the back entrance to avoid the cameras. Former patients contacted the private investigator. More nurses backed up Sarah Lang's story, though none yet dared go public. Then came the smear campaign. First, an article claiming Jonathan had threatened hospital staff during Claire's final hours. Then, a forged email suggesting Maya and Jonathan had been romantically involved before Claire's death. Maya read it while feeding Elias. Her stomach turned. When Jonathan entered the kitchen, she held up her phone. "They're coming for me now." He read the headline, face darkening. "This is disgusting. It was bound to happen." Maya said calmly. They want to make this about us, not her. I'll sue. You'll waste energy, she said. Let the lies burn out. Truth lasts longer than gossip. He stared at her, admiration and sorrow flickering in his eyes. I hate that you have to go through this. I hate that any of us do, she replied, but hating it doesn't stop it. Fighting does. Jonathan stepped closer. Thank you for not running. I have nothing to run from. That night, long after the house had gone quiet, Jonathan sat in Claire's old reading chair. Her photo still stood beside it. For the first time since her funeral, he spoke aloud to her. I should have seen it sooner, he said softly. I should have trusted you. I thought being strong meant accepting what happened. But maybe strength means not letting it go. He swallowed hard. I miss you every day. But I think you'd like Maya. She sees things I never could. In the hallway, Maya paused, unseen, listening. She didn't smile or cry. She simply understood. 2 days later, Sarah Lang agreed to go public. It was Maya's idea to film her testimony. Raw, unedited, just her voice and her truth. They recorded it in Jonathan's study. Sarah spoke about how Claire had begged for help, how the doctor refused, how staff were pressured to stay silent. When she finished, she looked straight into the camera. I've carried this too long. I should have spoken then. I'm speaking now. By evening, the video had over 1 million views. The tide shifted, outrage spread. Protesters gathered outside Crescent Memorial holding signs, "Listen to women," and "Hold doctors accountable." Jonathan watched in awe, and knew the battle had only begun. Late that night, he and Maya stood on the patio beneath a sky full of stars. What if they come after you harder? He asked. Then I'll stand harder, she replied. And if they twist it all again? You let the world think what it wants, she said. We know why we're here. He looked up at the stars. You ever think maybe Claire brought you to us? Maya smiled. No, she said. I think I was meant to find her and finish what she started. They stood together in silence, not lovers, but allies bound by truth and purpose. She doesn't know any of this, Maya said softly. She's just happy, warm, fed. Jonathan looked over at her. Because of you. Maya shook her head. Because Claire fought to bring her into this world. I'm just making sure she doesn't have to fight the same battle again. Later that day, Jonathan's lawyer, Julian Sharp, called. You're going to be subpoenaed, he said. The Department of Justice is opening a formal investigation. They want both of you to testify, publicly. Jonathan expected fear, maybe nerves, but instead, he felt ready. We'll be there, he replied firmly. Maya, listening from the hallway, took a deep breath. Her hands trembled as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The hearing was held in a packed chamber. Families, nurses, activists, and quiet survivors filled every seat. The air hummed with tension. When Maya was sworn in, a senator asked sharply, You're not a licensed professional. Why do you believe you're qualified to speak on this matter? Maya didn't blink. Because I held a dying woman's baby when no one else would, she said. Because I saw the look in her eyes when she realized she wasn't going to make it. And no one was going to help. You don't need a license to tell the truth. Silence filled the room, then applause, not from politicians, but from the people. Jonathan spoke next, calm and precise. His words cut through the noise, data, algorithms, hidden directives, the ghost trail of lives lost to negligence. But it was Maya who carried the heart of the testimony. Claire wasn't a victim, she said. She was a warrior. And you don't bury a warrior in silence. You build a legacy in her name. By the time they stepped out of that chamber, the national conversation had shifted. This wasn't scandal anymore. It was history. That evening a package arrived for Maya. No note, just a small velvet box. Inside was a gold necklace, a tiny sea charm, and a new letter pendant. Jonathan appeared at the doorway. I had it made, he said quietly. Maya's eyes welled up. You didn't have to. I wanted to. 1 letter for Claire. 1 for you, because you both saved me. She stepped forward and rested her head on his shoulder. Not in romance, but in something deeper. Trust, solidarity, survival. I never imagined this life, Maya whispered. Neither did I, Jonathan replied. But I'm grateful for it, and for you. The following weekend, they held a candlelight vigil on the hospital lawn. Not a protest, a remembrance. Hundreds gathered. A large photo of Claire stood in the center, surrounded by flowers and handwritten notes. Maya stood before the crowd, Jonathan beside her, Elias clutching her hand. She was a doctor, Maya began, But more than that, she was a fighter. She knew something was wrong, and now, the world does too. Jonathan added softly, "Justice doesn't undo what was taken, but it honors the truth, and that's all Claire ever wanted." Together, they lit the first candle. One by one, others followed, until the lawn glowed like a field of stars. That same week, Congress introduced the Claire Reed Patient Protection Act, ensuring every mother's birth plan must be recorded and respected. Hospitals changed. Policies shifted. The ripple had become a wave. In quiet evenings, after the children were asleep, Maya and Jonathan would sit together in silence, breathing in the peace they'd fought for. "One life," Jonathan said one night, staring into the fire. "We tried to save one life, and ended up changing thousands." "Claire's name isn't just remembered," Maya whispered. "It's protected. Because it was never about revenge. It was about justice. And justice had finally found a voice." Autumn gave way to winter. The Reed estate exhaled, at peace at last. But Maya couldn't stop. She spoke at panels, answered letters from women across the country, kept fighting for those still silenced. Some days she wanted to rest. But then she'd see Amelia's eyes, or Elias drawing pictures of Miss Maya with superpowers. And she remembered Claire never got to stop. So Maya kept going. One morning, Jonathan found her at the kitchen island, lost in paperwork. "You need a break," he said. "I need to finish this," she whispered. "You're allowed to be tired. I'm scared that if I slow down, it'll all slip back into silence." He reached across the counter and took her hand. "You're not alone," he said. "Not anymore." The doorbell rang. It was Elaine, Claire's mother. Elegant, stern, eyes sharp with old pain. They sat in the sunroom. "You're not what I expected," Elaine said. "I often am not," Maya replied. "You loved Claire." "I did. She was more than my employer. She was my friend." Elaine studied her. "My grandchildren call you Mama Maya. You sit where Claire sat. You speak in her name. No one can replace Claire," Maya said softly. "Not in this house. Not in this world." For a moment, silence. Then Elaine nodded. "She would have wanted someone like you in that room. Someone who didn't ask for permission to care." The thaw came, quiet, but real. As she left, Elaine told Jonathan, "She's not just part of your story. She is the story now." "I know," he said. "She's earned it." Snow fell that night. Maya sat in the nursery, Elias asleep in her lap, thinking of her own son back in South Carolina. Her heart split daily between the life she built and the one she left behind. Jonathan knelt beside her. "You miss him," he said. "Every second. You don't have to keep sacrificing yourself." Claire did, until it cost her everything. He brushed away her tear. "Because of her, we know better now." 2 days later, a letter arrived from the White House. The Claire Reed Patient Protection Act had passed. Signed into law, Maya William. It read, "Your courage has changed this country. Heroes don't wear white coats or gavels. They hold crying babies in the dark and speak truth when silence is easier. Claire's story is now America's story because you told it. Thank you." The President. Maya read it 3 times, folded it gently, and pressed it to her heart. That night, she stood on the porch, watching snow fall on Claire's garden. Inside, Jonathan read bedtime stories while the children laughed. And for the first time since Claire's death, Maya whispered, "I did what I promised." There was no thunder, no sign, just peace. Spring came again. Green buds laughed her light. The house that once held grief now overflowed with warmth. Inside, framed photos told the whole story. Claire in her lab coat, Maya holding Amelia, Jonathan before Congress, and one photo in the center, Claire and Maya laughing on a bench. Jonathan had framed it himself. "This house remembers," he'd said. One quiet Sunday morning, Jonathan made pancakes while Maya wore Claire's old cardigan. The phone rang, Julian Sharp again. "The numbers are in," he said. "Maternal intervention requests are up 40%. Denied requests down 60. Thousands of women. Heard." Maya looked at the photo of Claire. "They're listening now," she whispered. That afternoon, her son Jamal arrived from South Carolina, taller, braver, running straight into her arms. "Mama," he cried. She laughed, holding him tight. And just like that, the children became family. That evening, under the lantern light, they all gathered for dinner. Jonathan, Maya, the kids, and their team. Maya raised her glass. "I came into this house to earn money," she said. "But what I found was a voice I didn't know I had. And a woman who taught me that dignity isn't given, it's lived." "To Claire," Jonathan said. "To Claire," everyone echoed. Then softly, "and to Maya." Later that night, on the porch, Jonathan asked, "You ever think about what comes next?" "Every day," she said. "Maybe this house has held enough pain. Maybe now it can hold peace." He smiled. "A strange little family. The best kind," she said. He looked out at the stars. "I want to fund scholarships for young black nurses, in Claire's name. And I'll build a sanctuary," Maya said, "for mothers to rest, in mine." "Then we'll do both," he replied. Together. The story made its final headlines not for tragedy, but for legacy. The foundation expanded nationwide. Maya received an honorary doctorate in human rights. Jonathan turned down Hollywood offers. "This isn't entertainment," he said. "It's a lesson." On the anniversary of Claire's death, Maya sat in the rose garden with Amelia. "You won't remember her," Maya whispered, "but she remembers you. Every breath you take is her legacy. Every time a woman is believed, that's her voice echoing through the world." Amelia smiled. Maya kissed her forehead, and finally, rested, because justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, through ordinary people who choose to act when silence is easier. Maya, the black maid once overlooked and dismissed, became the voice for the voiceless, not through power, but through purpose. And the legacy of Claire Reed lived on, not just in laws or headlines, but in lives saved and in the courage to listen.